Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Energy RX. I'm Christine Pascal, your host, and we are in for such a treat today. Today, I have Dr. Kat Lewis, and it's funny how I found her. I am pretty new to TikTok, and the algorithm just shot her content to me, and she had so many fascinating piece reels and bits of information that were so in alignment with things that I've been working with for the past 30 years. I just thought I need her to come on and talk about her work and what she's done because she's clearly up to incredible things in the world. So, Dr. Kat, welcome for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. This will be fun.
This will be fun. So I'd love to start this by you just kind of introducing yourself and your background and how you came from being a PhD into this consciousness realm.
Okay, so where do I begin? um, so I have a PhD in chemistry and biochemistry, and
Okay.
I was in biotech for many years, for about close to 20 years.
Wow.
And, I would go to conferences and I would see all this money being spent on trying to find a drug to fix, to heal people,
Right.
to fix people. But I soon realized that that's not the way to go, right? It's lifestyle, right? We're spending billions and billions of dollars in pharmaceutical companies and then also in the technology to support pharmaceutical companies. But to find this one drug that's going to heal a certain issue.
Right.
But what became very clear is that there's multiple pathways being affected. And so one drug's not going to do it. And the drug and the heal and our health issues are really not because of a deficiency in drugs. It's because of our lifestyle.
Right.
So there's multiple components that are contributing to this. And so I was in biotech for 20 years and just watching this and just going, this is just not the way. We need to educate people.
Right.
And then somewhere along the way, kind of around the same time I was looking at this, someone said to me, there's supposedly only one self here. And we're all a part of this one self. Now, in that terminology, that was like coming from like Indian philosophy, right? So they refer to God or the universe as the self. Whereas here in the Western world, we refer to God as God, right? Mm-hmm. So I soon realized that what he was talking about was God, and that how we're all part of this one thing, self. And I was like, really? How does that work? And so I started just being really curious. And then I found very soon after that, I found what's called Vedic science or Vedanta, which is what my Vedic science teacher used to say is the knowledge that ends the search for knowledge. Because it's the truth about reality. And we're all seeking to discover this. And so that's why it's called the knowledge that ends the search for knowledge. Because once you realize the truth of reality, that stops your seeking. And really that truth is that there's just one thing here and that we're all a part of it. And so the way I like to, people might be like, what does that mean? Well, when you have a dream at night and that whole entire dream, it seems, when you're in the dream, you think you're the dream self, but you're really the entire container of the dream. All of that dream reality, including your dream body, is occurring inside your mind, your field of awareness, or your consciousness, right? So that entire dream reality is you. It's occurring within you. But when you're in it, you think you're the dream body, but you're really all of it. But that's the same truth for this reality too.
I have never thought about it from that perspective because when you're in the dream and you come out and you tell the story about your dream, you're only describing it as the perspective that you saw as the self, but not the other people in your dream, not the things you're seeing. That is an aha for me.
Yeah. So I always tell people the more you can, think about how a dream works, what the experiences of a dream, not just while you're in it, but when you come out of it, where does all of that go? It was just an illusion.
Okay, this is a very big concept.
Yes. And that's why it takes some time. I was just having a conversation today about it. They were like, how do you practice this? Like, so it's reconditioning the mind. It's re-understanding the truth of reality, because our experience is not the truth of reality. We experience separation, right? We experience distance between objects, and it feels like this space is empty, but it's really not. It's filled with energy.
Right.
Right? We know that there's radio waves going through here right now. We can't hear them with our ears, but when we tune our radio station to a particular station, we pick that information up. Right? So radio waves are energy. UV waves are energy. We only see 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So there's enormous amounts of energy here, and we can't see it. Right? But we know it's here, but we don't usually think about it. But so we experience separation, we experience distance, right? We think we're the body,
right,
but we're not. And so in order to understand this or to realize this, you have to keep exposing your mind to the information and then using that information to evaluate your experience. So it's a reconditioning of the mind. I do believe that when we were children, when we first came in, that we were experiencing more of the energy that's here.
Yeah.
Because when children, when they come in, that our brainwave states at that age are like theta, alpha and theta.
Right.
And so when you actually, as an adult, when you start experiencing alpha and theta again, you do start experiencing more energy in the field that's all around you. Okay.
You know, one of the things that you're talking about is how we are everything. And when you're a child, you're more expansive and you're more able to pick up on these subtle energies. I had this one experience. I was maybe 4 or 5. I was really little. And my mom took me to a park. And there's lots of kids playing. And of course, I should be so excited to be there. And for whatever reason, something came over me. And I remember standing and looking around the park at all of these people. And I had this knowing. It was a knowing. I'm the only one really here. And I actually felt lonely. And I quickly dispersed it. And but it was such a powerful thing that came over me that I've carried it with me my whole life. And then I just thought, what a weird thing to think, like, how, childish thought or whatever that was. But now the more that I understand that that person, it's another myself, that really there is one being, but it's so hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah. So that's where, the new physics that's coming out from, particularly Nassim Haramein at the International Space Federation. Mm-hmm. So his physics really describes how this works, and that then helps our mind to understand. Right. So it takes a while, like to grasp that information. Again, you have to just keep re-exposing your mind to this information. So, and then use that information to evaluate your experience.
So that's a really just like, I follow Nassim Haramein, and a lot of what he says is kind of beyond my comprehension, but I do keep going back to it, but it's almost like inoculating yourself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, in this really good way. So yeah, I'm gonna have to read his things more. I didn't realize he was explaining that concept. So now I'm even more intrigued.
Yeah, he doesn't explain it in those terms, but if you start listening a bit, you'll see, the field, which is the field of existence that we exist in, is consciousness, is a mind.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're like each one of us is like a little neuron in that field. And that double torus dynamic is self-awareness. So now what Vedanta teaches, or Vedic science teaches, is their goal is to teach you who you are. We don't have really, the only conflict in the universe, or all conflicts, all problems in the universe, are because or in our world, I'll say, on earth, is because we don't understand who we are, right? So if we understood that we are existence itself, a field of awareness, and not the physical body, we would feel free and we'd feel connected and we'd actually see more of what's here, because our state of consciousness, our state of being, determines how we experience reality. So the more and more you start identifying as a field of awareness, awareness itself, not the body, right? But your normal, ordinary awareness, but understanding what reality is. And so as you start standing as awareness, your nervous system relaxes. And when the nervous system relaxes, you get to experience more of the energy that's always here, but in a state of stress or a state of not even knowing what's here, then you don't get to experience that. And the nervous system is constricted.
Yeah. So there's that contraction as opposed to the expansiveness of what
exactly
is possible.
Right. So it's really a matter of realizing, okay, well, what was happening for me is I was exposed to this information. And then what I would do is I would walk around and I would say, okay, all of this is happening inside of me. And I noticed that as soon as I said that, and as soon as I would just stop and take a moment to realize that, I would feel different. And then over time, I started feeling energy in the field. Well, there was one particular moment that transformed a lot for me. And that was one night it was 2018. And I was at home with my daughter and my boyfriend at the time. And I was going down to lay next to her. And as I was laying down, she wasn't feeling good. And I was taking my book and I was going to sit down next to her in bed and read while she watched a movie. And as I went to lay down, all of a sudden I felt very weightless. And I started kind of, in my peripheral vision, I saw like the room was moving, like the space in the room was even space, like this seemingly empty space was like moving. And I was like, so I sat back up and I thought, did I just get dizzy? But you don't normally get dizzy sitting down, you get dizzy standing up, right? And so I sat up and I looked out into the room and everything looked like light suspended in space. So the objects in her room, the walls, the desk, the end of the bed that I could see, all of it looked like light suspended in space. So, when you were a kid, if you went to the movie theater and you looked up and you could see that the image of the film was suspended above your head before it hits the canvas, the movie screen or the screen. So that's what it was like. Everything was just light and it was all just kind of hanging in the air, suspended in space. And I could see that there was even like a texture, like in the field, this empty space, the seemingly empty space felt like I could see there was particles or fluid in it.
Yeah.
But my body felt completely weightless. Like I felt at one with everything. Like there was no boundary between me and the space.
Right.
And so I stood up and I looked at my arms and I was like, I could see them, but they felt no different than, space. Like, so imagine what does space feel like? It feels empty. It feels light, right? So that's how I felt. I felt weightless and light. And I was like, what is happening? And so I thought, am I having a stroke? But there was no pain. It was just the opposite of pain. I felt completely weightless. Right. So I thought, and then my daughter was laying in bed. So I was thinking, I don't want to collapse here in front of her. So I'm going to go to where my boyfriend is. And so I started walking down the hall. And as I was walking down the hall, I don't normally often say this, but I'll say it. I went to put my hand out to touch the walls because I felt so weightless. I thought, do I need support? But I didn't need support. But I went to put my hand out to touch the walls and my hand went through the wall. And I was like, oh my God. And I could feel myself like expanding so much. And it felt like this whole thing, what we call the physical world, was just disintegrating, just like a dream.
It's amazing.
I felt myself just leaving the dream. I thought I saw it all going away. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying.
That's what I would think. I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Yeah. So I thought I was dying, but there was, again, absolutely no pain. So then I walk into the room and he was a healer. And so he had had a lot of experience with healing, and he had seen a lot of really strange stuff. So when I walked in and I said, I do not know what's going on with me, but maybe you should call 911, because I thought it was maybe I was having a stroke. So he turned and he looked at me and he just kept zeroing into me, and he said, I will if you want me to. And later I asked him, I said, how did you know that you didn't need to call 911? He said, I didn't. He said, I just didn't sense death. And I was like, but how would you even know? But anyway, so I went in and we sat down on the edge of the bed, and I said, I was trying to find words to explain what I was feeling, but I couldn't. There was no experience I had that could explain what I was feeling. And as we were sitting there, I was holding his hand really tight, and I was just looking up, and I just said, I'm not going. I'm not going. And I felt like I was like willing myself into my body, and I was really squeezing his hand. I felt like that was grounding me. Yeah. And I just said, I'm not going. I am not going. Because I thought about my daughter, and I was like, I'm not leaving her. Because I grew up without a father, and I was like, I'm not leaving her. And so I just said, no, I'm not going. And as I was sitting there talking to him and trying to figure out what was going on, I had this overwhelming gratitude come over me for my life, for everything, for him, for our girls. We had 3 between the 2 of us, for all my life experiences, for everyone I knew. I was naming off everybody I knew, and I was saying, I'm so grateful for, all these people. And then my heart starts beating really fast like this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm really having a stroke. And so I just kept looking up, and I said, I am not going. And he came over to the side of me, and he put one hand in front of my heart and one hand over my crown. And I eventually looked up at him, and he said, you're getting an upgrade. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I kept saying I'm staying. Eventually, long story short, I end up having to throw up. I feel this energy start rising up, and I was like, I think I have to throw up. And so now at this point, I'm really scared, because my mom had basically a stroke, and that was one of the things that happened to her. First, she said she couldn't see straight. Next, she had to vomit. And then after she vomited, she wasn't responding. So now I'm thinking this is all sounds similar to her. Right. Because I guess you could say when I was seeing everything show up like light, you could call that not seeing straight. Right. So anyway, I go into the bathroom and I throw up, and I was still here. I was like, okay, I'm still here. And so I just kept saying again, I'm staying. And I said, let's move into the living room. And as we started walking down the hall to the living room, all of a sudden I felt this rush of like liquid electric energy just shoot right out of my core. And then my whole body felt like light. I felt like a light being. Every single cell, the blood, the bones, everything felt like light. Like I did not feel like a human being anymore. It just felt like radiating light, like the most extraordinary experience you can even imagine. Like my human mind prior to that could have never imagined anything was possible. And I was jumping up and down, swinging my arms, and I was going, oh my God, is this how we're supposed to feel? And it literally was like if you took a Raggedy Ann doll and just shook her like this, her arms and limbs would just freely go everywhere. That's exactly how I felt in my body. But it felt like light. And so like, if, I try to, if you go out and look at the sun and imagine every particle of your being feeling like that, just feeling like light. It's bliss. But it's ecstatic bliss. It's like joy. It's like pure divine being. And anyway, in that moment, I realized, wow, not maybe in that moment, but shortly after that, I realized no disease can exist in that light. And that's who we truly are. And, I had a shoulder injury where I could barely move this arm. I had Hashimoto's disease. All of it was gone in boom, a split second.
Wow. This experience healed all of that.
I healed all of it. Everything was gone. Like whatever. I didn't really have much, but I did have a shoulder injury, and I had Hashimoto's. I mean, I could swing my arms all the way back. They could touch behind me. My legs could go literally right in front of my face. And I mean, there was absolutely no resistance in the body. And then all of a sudden I started inhaling, deep inhales, and I could take in air, and the breath would just go on and on and on and on. And then, and said to my daughter, I was like, Nadia, watch this. And I was like jumping up and down, and I turn around and I look at my boyfriend, and he wasn't even phased, just because he's seen so many miraculous things. And but anyway, the rest of that night, my brain was on fire. My brain was just going bzzz. This energy is just moving back and forth. Now that was like 3 weeks after Joe Dispenza's retreat.
I was wondering if there was something that, propelled that kind of experience. So you had
Yeah.
been doing some deep work, and then a few weeks later have this transcendental experience.
Well, I had been practicing Kundalini yoga at that time for like 4 years.
Okay.
I had gone to Joe Dispenza's retreat earlier that month,
Okay.
and did all the meditations and the prep for that too. And prior to, during that time of Kundalini yoga, I wasn't just doing the practice, I was also studying Vedic science, science of consciousness, right? So, and that is really to teach you who you are as consciousness, right? And so we are already free. Who we are as that light, right? We are light. We're light beings.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of us never dies. The body will go away,
Right.
but who we are, the essence of who we are, never dies. And this is where the physics is helpful, right? So usually I put up an image on the screen and show people what that looks like, because once you start to see the structure, right, you can visualize the structure, and then you go within yourself and start to experience that structure, it becomes more real for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But who we are is that light. And so what I was already doing was shifting my understanding of who I am. And therefore, what that does is it shifts our experience.
Right.
So as we start to realize that we're not the body, that we're really the space and this light that we can't see with our physical eyes, then we start to relax into it. And as we relax into it, our nervous system unwinds. And we also our inner senses turn on, and we start to experience more of what's actually here. Right. So there's enormous amounts of energy, and energy is information. And so when you get access to that, fear goes away. I mean, when you understand the structure of reality, their nature of reality, fear goes away. Fear is only because we don't know who we are. That's the only reason for fear. Because once you really start to understand who you are, that all goes away. It's just lack of understanding that causes fear.
Right.
Right. And so anyway, so I was doing Kundalini yoga, I was studying Vedic science, and then I went to Joe Dispenza's retreat. I had also gone to a Kundalini yoga retreat prior to Dispenza's retreat. And then I came home, and 3 weeks later, that happened. So after that, everything became alive to me as I was walking down the street or in my house, where everything was bouncing. The floor was bouncing. The air was bouncing. It was breathing. The trees were breathing. I was like, what is happening? I couldn't find anyone who could explain it to me. Even Kundalini gurus couldn't explain what happened. When I shared what happened, they didn't know how to tell me what happened, what was going on. And I realize now that was by design. I needed to figure it out on my own. That was the journey I signed up for, apparently.
Yeah. I've been doing this work for a very, very long time, and I've never heard a story like this, where your hand could go through the wall. Now, I've seen sort of the wall moving and seen the energy around, but I haven't shifted that much where I actually I've moved through matter in that way. So this is an amazing story.
Yeah. So, and I never thought that anyone could ever explain that experience. And that's why I didn't really share that a lot, because I was like, who's going to validate that? No one saw me do that. Right. But then I interviewed William Brown from the International Space Federation. So he's the biophysicist, and essentially physicist, because he hangs out with all those physicists at International Space Federation. He probably knows more physics than any physicist I know. And he could explain it to me.
Oh, is there a way that you can distill it down a little bit to help explain it?
Yeah. So basically the fundamental reality, the basis of all of this is a field of energy.
Right.
And so when you're down at that level, when you've brought your level of awareness to that level, of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So you're below where any forces have manifested yet.
Okay.
So the forces that create matter is electromagnetism and gravity.
Okay.
So that when you're below that level, before those before mass is created, there's no forces. So you're one with the field.
Okay.
Okay. So, and everything is coming out of the field. So when you bring your level of awareness down there, then you're below any of those forces. So you're one with the field. That's why I felt weightless.
Okay.
But
So,
see, I didn't induce that consciously, right? I didn't even know that was possible. So I'm still not sure exactly, there's this concept of the higher self, right? Giving us experiences.
mm,
So I don't know if it was really it probably was this something I signed up for, but also when you come into resonance with the field, so all these practices I was doing were helping me come into resonance, coherence with the field. And so when you come into coherence with the field, you do spread out. Your consciousness does spread out. And because the material world is an expression of your consciousness, right? What you believe.
mm-hmm.
If I'm merged back into the field, then I'm one with the field, right? So there's less density, or it seems like density here. There's less density here because this is all just light.
It's all, I think there's a great quote from a like maybe Jesuit priest or a priest. It's, I'm gonna get his name wrong. It's like Teilhard de Chardin, I forget, but this philosopher and 100 years ago or so. And he said that matter is just spirit slowed down,
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Kind
And
of.
so this has been spoken of for so many years.
So if you think, Nassim Haramein also always uses this analogy, right? So if you think of yourself in the bathtub and you pull the drain,
Hmm.
right? The water near the drain just starts spinning and there's a vortex going down. There's actually air coming up, you just can't see it. Okay. But
Okay.
there's a vortex going down, right? And
Yeah.
so what is the water doing? It's creating vortex, but it's really, so that area where the vortex is
Hmm.
seems like a particle, right? You could call that's actually what, if we use the same analogy for how space creates matter, right? So
Okay.
space creates an object. That's exactly what's happening, but it's just at the subatomic scale, like at the Planck scale. So the Planck scale is the like the pixels of our dimension. Okay, so they're like 10 to the minus 34 centimeters. Don't quote me on that. But something very, very small. Something very, very small. So these tiny units they make like this ocean. They overlap each other and they make this ocean of space. So they're here, but they're very, very small. They're billions of times smaller than a proton. That's why we don't experience them directly. Okay. So they come together. So just like the water molecules in the bathtub come together and start spinning to make that vortex,
Right.
that's what those Planck spherical units are doing. And they come together and they start to spin and then they create what we see as matter. Okay. So basically that is space, this what we think of as empty space creating the material world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we that's why space or matter is not separate from anything, and either are we,
Right.
either our physical bodies, because we're made out of space. So
Right.
this concept that atoms are 99.9999% space, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, but in the conventional model of physics, they've ignored that. They've ignored the space and they're just looking at the material objects.
Okay.
So now humanity is shifting. We're starting to expand our awareness of this. And Nassim's International Space Federation is really going to help that shift.
Okay. This is all, I mean, it's so good for me. I love having the science too. And I'm not a scientist, but I love really trying to understand the science because I think it helps the layperson also understand it and be able to believe it. And I think belief is such a key part of it. When you have people who have done the experiments and done the science, then they feel like, oh, this isn't just some woo-woo or 2,000-year-old text. This is proven science. And so then once they can believe it, then they can actually begin to experience it. But you have to believe it before
Exactly.
you can experience it.
Right. Exactly. And Vedic science is really not a woo-woo thing. It literally it uses the unexamined logic of your experience to prove to you that you are pure consciousness. That means just existence itself. Okay. And then there's all this science that validates that.
Yeah.
But it helps, it gives you enough information that you can start evaluating your own experience. Okay, so it's shifting your identity from you believing you're just the dream self, right?
Mm-hmm.
To understanding yourself as all of it. You are the container holding the dream of life. You're the body, you're a body of consciousness. And the beautiful thing about it is it teaches you your identity right away, right? So they teach you this information right away. This is the truth of reality. Now, what we need to do is remove the beliefs that block you from experiencing that. Okay, so they're teaching you right away your true identity, our true identity. And the beautiful thing is that that part of us is always free, right? So now, if you can just put your awareness on that part of yourself, just by simply dropping into your heart and expanding out, sensing and feeling the space all around you and in your heart. Okay, because the heart is really the portal to that part of you. So the universe is structured in layers. The fundamental layer, right, the sphere in which all of this is happening in, is the fundamental reality. That's us as pure consciousness or existence. Okay, and then that crystallizes down into the physical, but that is still here in the space.
Yeah. I
Right.
sometimes think about it almost like water, right? There's going to be water vapor, but then that can crystallize into an ice cube. You can see,
Mm-hmm.
like, how it can be, it's the same thing. The
Yeah,
mist is the same thing as the ice cube.
exactly.
Sometimes for my brain, that visualization can help me to understand that.
Yes, exactly. But this part is always changing, right? So this is always regenerating itself, right? It's never new. So the idea is who we are is eternal, ever present, unlimited, infinite, blissful awareness, right? So if we can put our attention on that, expand your awareness, feel the space all around you, the outer layers of the field of perception that you are, just expanding your sense of yourself, just feeling this outer boundary of yourself, which you really can't find because we're infinite, right? And then, so as soon as you do that, you take your attention off the physical body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you already feel relaxed, right? And then as you keep practicing that over and over and over again, and then exposing your mind to this information, to this body of knowledge, then over time, you will start to express more of those traits through you. You will feel infinite. You will feel blissful. You will feel whole. You'll feel complete. And because this field around you is information.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you keep relaxing into it and the more you let it shine through you, the more of that information will be transferred to your conscious mind.
Yeah.
Right. So like people, again, let's just go back to the dream to keep this straight. When you're in a dream, you think you don't know you're dreaming. And so you identify as the dream self, the person you are in the dream.
Right.
Right. And you think all of that is real. Now, some people actually wake up in a dream. They call that lucid dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So the body is asleep in bed, but they're awake in the dream and they know they're dreaming. Right. Now, a lot of people, when they do that, they start to realize they can change the dream, right? And so they can fly if they want to fly. They can make things move if they want to make it move. They can switch into a different reality if they want to. Well, we can actually do that here too. But here it's a collective experience. It's more, some of our dreams are also collective experiences, but dreams can be many things. They can be us just walking around a three-dimensional image of our own mind, or we can actually be in other realms, other dimensions, right? So But here it's a collective experience. So we usually don't make things happen like that
Mm-hmm.
unless you've reached a certain state of consciousness. And this is why I believe people like Jesus and other masters, they had reached that point where they didn't have to, it wasn't a belief, it was a knowing of how reality works. So, meaning they understood the structure of reality.
Right.
So now it's not like, oh, I have to believe. No, it's I know. And that comes as the more and more you stay present and the more and more you let that light shine, that knowledge will be imparted to you because this is a mind that we're in.
So do you find that when you're working with people that there is a little bit of a letting go and of not clinging and not holding so tightly, and it can feel, I think, frightening for some people to have that surrender and to let go? What would your advice be for people who are hearing these words and hearing what you're saying, but they feel really tense and rigid and held and uncomfortable and all of those things in their physical body, so they're so identified with the body? What steps could those people who like the idea of this, of sort of becoming something more, of expanding out into it, but just don't know how to actually release?
So, I mean, early on, there's a number of different things. When you're first being exposed to this information, there's a number of different things that you can do. It all just depends on the person,
Right.
right? So, but one of the easiest things is to understand what you're actually doing when you do, like heart brain coherence, for example.
Right.
Like, let's understand what we're doing, right? So I wish I could show you an image of the structure, but when you bring your attention into the heart, what you're doing is you're going into that deeper layer of reality.
Okay.
So that's why, and people will notice right away that when they bring their attention down and start just breathing in and out of the heart, that already the thoughts quiet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you point that out, right? So just notice how when you bring your attention down into your chest and you start breathing here, notice what happens. What happens? Is the mind a little bit more quiet? Is there less thoughts?
Right.
Do the emotions feel a little bit more stable, calm? Right? And so they'll usually say yes, because if they can hold their attention there long enough, it will happen. It happens automatically. So that's two things that they just notice. They notice their mind quieted down and the emotions calm down, right? And their body relaxes a little bit more.
Right.
So that's three things: the mind, the emotions, and the body all relaxed simply by dropping the awareness into the heart and relaxing into the space around them. So that's good feedback, right? So now they have that information. And so that can then show them that the next time they do it, that can happen again. And they might get deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's really about knowledge first, like understanding what's happening, understanding that part of them is already free. So this is one of the biggest things that I see that's missing in the spiritual worlds these days, is that there's a lot of focus on healing.
Yeah.
But I think the focus should be on, no, first you identify who you actually are, because that part of you doesn't need any healing.
There is this part of you that is whole and perfect that you can align with.
Right, exactly. So just put your attention on that part of you every single day to start your day, right? And then look at these beliefs that are causing you problems. Because when you expand into that part of you first, now these beliefs become obvious, and the solution to the belief becomes obvious. Maybe not immediately, but over time, you'll quickly find an answer. Because what you're doing is, when you bring your attention down into the heart and expand, you're including more of yourself, more energy, and more information, the wiser part of yourself. So that will help you with the solution. So for me, I just think, what really helped me was, my Vedanta teacher kept saying, apply the knowledge and stand as awareness. So stand as the witness. So as the witness, I know I'm not the body. I know I'm not the thoughts, and I know I'm not the emotions. Right. So if I feel an emotion, I used to do this. Like if I was in a conversation that was a challenging conversation, I would feel emotion come up in me. I'd look down and I'd say, I know you, you don't know me. Meaning, the emotion isn't sentient. I'm the sentience that knows the emotion. So as soon as I said that, I could distance myself from the emotion. So that gave me freedom over the emotion. I'm the witness, right? So if I'm feeling limited by my experience, I have an identity problem. I think I'm the dream self,
Right.
right? Because it's just another dream. I think I'm the dream self. I don't realize I'm the container holding the dream of life.
I had a really interesting message that speaks to that come through. It's like channeling, and one of this bit of wisdom that came through in this session was when you find yourself really attached to an emotion or an outcome, and you feel that attachment to something, then you know you've really kind of veered out of feeling that connection to that eternal part of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's okay. That's not what I would say. It's not a bad thing. I think there's some motion that, I mean, clearly the world right now is crazy and it's upside down and everyone feels confused. And so that's one of the things for myself that I've had my own internal struggle with is I do have strong feelings about things that are happening. And so how do I weigh those things of having strong feelings about seeing things that are happening in the world, but then also staying in my soul, staying in my spirit. So this is something that I'm still working through of like, no, but sometimes having feelings of anger, that's okay. That also can be a holy feeling to have. It's not to not have judgment on it.
On your own self anger,
On
your
my
own
own
anger.
self, feeling anger because before I would think, well, that makes me really angry. Like I'm watching something that feels really in like, and to this day, quite honestly, like I'm seeing something that feels like there's a lot of injustice. And so it sparks something in me. And I'm like, well, wait, I'm not being my spiritual self. I'm not acting from my soul because I know there's a higher purpose and a higher meaning. And so then
Yeah.
the judgment, so I know all these things, but then I had to come to know it's okay. It's okay to experience that. Like, don't judge yourself. Allow yourself to feel what it is. So I'd
Yeah.
love to know your thoughts about that in this particular time in our history.
Yeah. So I think, there's two parts of us, right? There's that eternal, unlimited part of us,
Right?
who whole and complete, ever present, unlimited, blissful awareness, right?
Hmm.
And I repeat those a lot because it's really good for people to really get those down so that they can always shift their attention back to that part of themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So who do I want to align with? Do I want to align with my conditioned self? Okay. So if we were in a dream
Hmm.
and we knew we were dreaming,
Okay.
then we wouldn't be focused on the problems in the dream. We'd be like, what do I want to create? Right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, this is all just a dream too. But because humanity has not understood who we are, we've created everything we've created. Right.
Hmm.
So we've created all these problems because of not knowing one thing, the truth of who we are. So this is edification for the soul, right? I believe we came here to have this experience of separation, to have this experience of limitation, so that we would then go through the journey of realizing we're not this limited, isolated human being in a great big universe, but we are the universe experiencing itself through form,
Right.
right? And we came purposefully wiping our ability to remember who we are so that we could go through this journey. Why? Because we're eternal. We never die.
Right.
And so why not? It's edification. Having experiences like this is wisdom for the soul.
Right.
If I'm an eternal being, having this experience of not knowing who I am and seeing how others' souls behave when they don't know who they are is an experience that contributes to my evolution.
Right.
Right? Because when you have, if you when you experience the opposite of what you actually want, it helps you really appreciate what it is you do value and want more. Right?
Yeah.
So by having this experience, when we go back into, or when we just expand into ourselves, we don't need to die to have this experience of realizing who we are. We can do it here. That's the enlightenment journey. Moving from not knowing to knowing is enlightenment. That's the enlightenment path. So we don't need to die in order to appreciate who we really are, is that eternal self. And that's what I think humanity is undergoing right now. So back to your question is, okay, so if I know this,
Right.
if I know that I came for that type of experience, or if I can just stop for a second and go, wow, that kind of does make sense, right? So all the science that's coming out is showing us just how connected we are, right? And that consciousness is the ground of all being. It's not just physicists saying this, it's also neuroscientists, people studying AI are starting to come to the same conclusion, that consciousness is fundamental. We are in a mind, okay? Mm-hmm. So now I have a choice. Do I want to keep identifying or aligning with my conditioned self, the one who didn't know she was in a dream? Or do I want to align with my eternal self, the one who knows that this is a dream, the one that feels whole and complete, unlimited, eternal, ever-present awareness? So I kept choosing alignment. So when I catch myself feeling limited, I put my attention, go, okay, when I would feel this emotion come up, I would look down and I go, I know you, you don't know me. So that helped me shift my attention back on who I am, who's already free, who's already here right now. I don't have to go through a path to get to her, to get to it, because it's not a male or female. Mm-hmm. That part of me is here right now. So I just relax into her, relax into that. And then now I can objectify everything I'm experiencing. So it's about alignment. And the more you align, the more that light will shine through. The healthier the body will become, because it's lack of that light that causes disease on all levels, mental, emotional, and physical. Your mind becomes very clear. Okay, you see things like more light actually comes in. Everything is more vibrant. Your eyesight will probably change, get better because of alignment.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I'm going to ask you this because sometimes I hear this a lot. So you clearly had this download and you had this huge shift that happened. And I know that night you threw up, and maybe that was some like huge purge and releasing of old energies. But did you have any other physical, because some people will talk about as you're sort of upgrading and shifting, that there can be some uncomfortable symptoms through it. Did you have anything like that as you were shifting?
Well, when I was at Joe Dispenza's retreat, maybe a little bit before, I was having a lot of pressure in the head. Okay. But I already knew then to just relax into it. So I wasn't fighting it. Mm-hmm. So just before that, so that happened, my Kundalini rising or spontaneous healing, whatever you want to call it. That happened just like last day, December 30th, 2018. Joe Dispenza's was the beginning of that month. Okay. So that was the only symptom before that happened. Before that happened, I was totally fine. My body was fine. It was just right. I had a little pressure at Joe Dispenza's retreat. Then when that happened, I blew up, and then I could experience reality differently. So then because I didn't understand what that was, I didn't understand what I was feeling. Mm-hmm. That kind of went away. So I started the density, the feeling of density in my body came back. Okay. I wasn't as I couldn't stretch like I could that night anymore. Yeah. That slowly came back, and I wasn't feeling as much bounce in the universe as much. Like it didn't feel as alive anymore. Because in order to stay in that state, we need to understand things differently. So I then had to I basically went through the journey of like, what was that? How can I explain that? And that led me to spiritual heart meditations. So the more I was bringing my attention into the heart and then expanding out, I could start to see the layers of reality. And when I say reality, this is all of us, right? This is our mind. So it's also the layers of the mind. So as I started to do that, then the energy started expanding again. I would have some days where I just feel like bouncing, and now I constantly feel a bounce. Now I constantly feel this bubbling energy coming out of my heart. It's like massive. It's a lot of energy that comes out. But before, there were some points in between that I would feel like I was on a boat dock and like The energy was really off-putting. I felt really unstable. And I would just always I would always like sit down somewhere, put my attention back into the center and just try to keep my attention here as much as possible. So I during those times I could understand. I thought to myself, oh wow, I can see how if people don't know how to find their center, mm-hmm. they could go into psychosis, right? They could have psychotic breaks.
That's a really, really good point. I mm-hmm. mean, in a way, it's almost what I'm hearing you say is like the heart's the portal.
The heart's the portal. Yeah. I mean, we have portals throughout the body, right. But the heart is the center of all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the heart, to me, the heart is the most important piece.
Right.
Because it's right in the center of our energy body and it's the balancing point.
Yeah. And so it's 3 above, mm-hmm. 3 below. So it's right in the center, balancing all those energies. Mm-hmm.
So to me, the heart is most important. In Kundalini, there's a lot of focus here. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a lot. Plus, you need the knowledge, you need the understanding of what these layers are, who you really are. So you need the big picture. And then, in my opinion, you need the big picture. And that's what Vedic science does, is it gives you the big picture first. And then as you start to bring your attention inward and start to experience these different layers of yourself, all of that just gives you so much stability. So there's no more, the confusion goes away. And this is the part where I see, there's a lack of this fundamental understanding of what reality is. And so even though there's a lot of people doing spiritual work, they still identify as the body. They still think, they don't know that part of them exists. The part that's whole and complete, ever present, eternal, right here, right now. It's not somewhere out there. It's you right here, right now.
I know. I think that most people quite do feel that way, that even their own soul is separate from them somehow.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not. So that's always going to leave you confused. Because the clarity comes when you consciously connect with it. That's when the clarity comes. So if there's a lot of confusion, if there's a lot of feeling like I have to heal this, I have to heal this, I have to heal this, then you don't have those aren't your problems. The problem is the identity. Who do you think you are? Who do you understand yourself to be? If you understand yourself to be the dream self, you're going to be confused.
So would you say in your work, so you work with people with, and we haven't heard yet, like the kinds of conditions and things that you are working with. Is this the foundation of your work with people?
So it depends. So some people, so I was doing functional medicine. So after I left biotech, mm-hmm. I discovered functional medicine first. And I was like, this is the information that everyone needs because functional medicine addresses the root cause, right? So the pharmaceutical companies are just addressing your symptoms, right? And our Western healthcare, our modern medicine is really good at addressing acute issues. Like if you have a stroke, or if you have a heart attack, if you have a broken leg, you're injured in a car accident, that's where you want to go. But in terms of chronic health conditions, they're terrible and they perpetuate the problem because they don't teach you how to heal. Right. And they really don't understand the mind-body connection. Okay, so I discovered functional medicine and I left biotech after 20 years. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. So I went into functional medicine, and almost at the same time, that was when I was really discovering Vedic science and the true nature of reality. And I forgot your question now.
Oh, so we're talking about the foundation of your work with people.
Oh, okay.
Of what that, if it's, consciousness or how it is you work with people.
So normally they're coming to me, up until the last couple of years, they were really coming to me primarily just for functional medicine. So people who are having issues that the Western model hasn't addressed well, like gut issues or feeling tired all the time, or a thyroid issue, autoimmune issues. Sort of conditions. So a number of just feeling like crap, basically, right? And then also people who just want to optimize, right? So they want to, because we run different tests than the Western model. So we're looking at amino acids, fatty acids, all your vitamins, your minerals. They don't really look at that in the traditional model. We look at the gut health, right? So we're looking at not just the bad bugs, but the good bugs. Do you have the bugs that are important for your health? So we're looking at different tests, so functional tests. And so that's very helpful to see where you are. So people either want to address a specific issue, or they're coming because they just want to optimize and they want to see where they are. Because these tests they actually give you things you can act on,
Okay.
right? Things you can actually address. And then, so when I work with people on a package that way, then we get into some of these things, because I can't really work with people without getting into these things, because your understanding of who you are is going to determine how your nervous system functions. Okay. And so that your nervous system is very important for your healing and for maximizing, not just healing, but for really creating vitality in your body. Okay. Because when you have a stressed nervous system, you can't come into coherence with the field.
Right.
So it's a holistic approach. So it's really challenging for me to work with people who can't have this conversation, or who don't want to have this conversation. It's not challenging, but it's just like, it's less enjoyable. I like working with people who want to hear this information, because when you start hearing this information, your awareness expands. And so you start to feel good. You start to feel whole, more complete. Right. So what is that doing? That's giving you more energy and more information. So the body starts to really heal.
Well, and you know what, I think an opening point to that conversation, I think sometimes with people who aren't as open-minded, is the connection between psychoneuroimmunology, how your thoughts affect your nervous system that can then lead to autoimmune conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of a gateway place.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gateway to begin this
Yeah.
conversation to greater consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I incorporate a lot of the science to show people, right? Because people, they don't really, it's just things that we haven't thought about, right? Like when you're stressed about a conversation or a talk you have to give or whatever, your adrenals are starting to produce cortisol, adrenaline, and then cortisol, right? So we didn't go down there and flip a switch. We had thoughts, and the thoughts generated the release of those hormones, right? So we are affecting the chemistry in our body every single moment. And the more coherent you are, the more connected to the field you are, the more you understand who you truly are, the more all of that will just come back online.
So the homeostasis within your whole body is so balanced it's an optimized state when you are expanded out into this field, is what I'm understanding.
Yes. And the field is actually, so the mitochondria and the microtubules in the body are actually interfacing with the field. We're always interfacing with the field.
Yeah. So this is a new area for me, is the microtubules and the mitochondria having these conversations, and what is it? The quantum tunneling between the field and the microtubules in your fascia and the mitochondria. This is such a fascinating conversation.
Yeah. So anytime you hear the word quantum tunneling, it just basically means that the protons and electrons are going into the field. Yeah. I mean, we're always in the field, but it's just getting your mind around it. But the more coherent you are, the more in resonance you are with the field, the more that will happen. It's kind of like, when you meet someone you really like and you just start sharing information very easily, it just flows, the conversation flows. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So you come into resonance with it, you're vibrating with it, then the information exchange, the energy exchange is faster. There's less resistance.
That I hadn't thought of. I hadn't thought of it that way, that the more that you are going to be picking up and having these conversations with consciousness, with the universe, with energy on these other levels of your being that are really powerful and really impactful to your experience of being here.
I mean, so we have subatomic particles that in our body, right, that are already interfacing with the field. Okay.
Right.
Now, when we're stressed, we kind of shut that down. When we're stressed, we don't let that flow easy. So you're already pinching off your life force energy.
Right.
Okay. So as you start to relax the nervous system, relax the body, you allow that transfer, that information transfer to happen without resistance.
And
Right. So that's always ongoing. Right.
yeah. And you have found a way now to mostly be in that state where you're really sort of, open to the field and feel
Mm-hmm.
your
And
experience, your physical matter in a light state.
yes.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So all it is us becoming aware of what's already happening. It's already happening. Okay. But we're not aware of it. So we're allowing our conscious mind to become aware of it. And as we become more and more aware of it, we can enhance it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So this is what I love about this information is it takes the woo woo out of spirituality.
Yeah.
It like unshrouds the garb of mysticism, which is what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi always says. You know, that spirituality has been shrouded in a garb of mysticism, right? There's lack of clarity, lack of understanding about what it actually is. That what does it mean that we're spirit? Well, it means you're a body of energy, right? That the physical body is only a portion of that energy.
Yeah.
It's 1% of the energy that's actually here, right? And so, and we're just allowing our conscious mind to become aware of it. It's already here. We're just allowing ourselves to be aware of it. And so you need to, you know, find the thing that's going to help you. Breath work helps you, but you need to bring the attention inward because the energy is here. The energy is all around you, but you know, your portal to it is here. And so when you bring your attention here, there's enormous amounts of energy here.
Yeah.
And energy is information. So when you bring your attention here, it'll start educating you. You just want to relax the mind, relax the eyes, and the information will start flowing. You'll feel it as peace. You'll feel it as a sense of wholeness. And then over time, it'll grow. The more you keep your attention on it, it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And so we just need to, what do we want to align with? Do we want to align with this energy or do we want to align with our conditioning?
Yeah.
Choice.
Well, that's such a good point. It is the choice point, right? Because our conditioning, our emotions, we can be in these patterns that are tempting, right? It's tempting to replay something where you've gotten a charge out of it, whether it's, anger or whatever those emotions are, it can be very alluring to kind of go back into that space. And so I do think what you're saying is there is this piece that is getting really conscious of what's the most important thing to you. Is it do you want to play with that? Or are you ready? Are you ready to become something greater? Are you ready to expand into this next level? It's your choice.
It is a choice, but I think then having a bigger picture understanding of how reality works, knowing that, okay, we live in an ocean. This empty space is really an ocean of energy, right? So when I create a wave, I'm not just affecting this over here, I'm affecting the entire ocean, the entire universe, and it comes back to me, right? So do I want to send hate, judgment out into the universe? Because it's going to come back to me. So do I want to send that out?
Yeah.
Right. So let's have an informed choice. So sure. So in the beginning, the ego is pretty strong, right? Our conditioning is really strong.
Yeah.
And so we might be in a space where we're just like, I don't care, I'm mad, right? So we do it anyway.
Yeah, no, the past couple of days, past 2 days in particular, I have like definitely felt like really mad, about politically things that I've seen, right? So for me,
Yeah.
it's this part of me knows that I really should just stay in love and stay in this thing, but I have these, and I'm sure it comes from fear, right? Underneath all of that, it's fear. It's fear. It's not really for myself, it's for other people, right?
Well, that's a really good point that you just brought up. Okay, because So now again, it's a great point to show that what's lacking there then is an understanding of reality, right? So now if you understand that each one of us, the double torus dynamic. Okay. So each one of us is a black hole, right? So this conventional model of understanding of a black hole just sucking all things in and not releasing anything out is wrong. A black hole, a proton is a black hole. Everything that we see in the universe that's material is a black hole. Because a black hole is that double torus dynamic, which is, the field expressing as form. And when it does that, that's a feedback, feed forward dynamic. That is awareness, right? So even a rock has a level of awareness, right? But my point is that a black hole is information in, information out, right? So if you can understand that all these people, not just you, but any of us, if we all can understand that everybody has a certain set of information, and so they're making decisions based on that information. So that means everyone has a different set of information because everyone is different. There's no two people, even twins, identical twins are not the same because each one of us is standing in a different place in this dream of life, pulling in different information. Right. So if we can understand that the person over here has a different data set than I do, and they're making their best judgment on that data set, then why should I judge them? If I had the exact same information set they did, I'd probably come to the same conclusion. Right. So then that helps that judgment piece go away. Does that make sense? So that understanding of the structure of reality helps us make better choices in our perspective, in our experience. Right. So I'm going to choose, wow, okay, that's information I didn't understand. I didn't understand they have a different data set than I do. So that's why and then we also don't know why they're here to experience that, whatever they're experiencing. And maybe I could be wrong. Maybe my data set's inaccurate, right? We have to keep our mind open to that possibility, but then also realize all of this part, all the physical reality is just a dream. So it doesn't really matter. There's no one that's right and there's no one that's wrong. And the true nature of reality is us as consciousness. And we're constantly experiencing different realms. Right? So we don't take all that judgment with us when we go. That's only here in the dream. So again, it's back to alignment. What do I want to align with? Do I want to align with the truth of reality and the truth of who I am? Who doesn't judge, who's whole and complete, isn't critical, who's love, unconditional love? Or am I going to align with my conditioned self, the one who was taught to judge, who was taught to condemn, who was taught to criticize, who was taught to see others as different?
That's really a powerful thing to really sit and contemplate within yourself. I mean, just that piece of really truly sitting with yourself and where do I really truly want to align? So my question for you would be okay, we're talking about aligning in that way with where do I want to align? Do I want to be my soul, myself? I would think this also then applies in the same way to someone who has a disease. Am I going to align with that disease and that condition, or am I going to align with that I'm a whole, complete being? What would you say about that?
Yeah, it's the same thing. So, but it's a little bit more challenging, especially during late stages of disease, right? So, so like you've had this disease for a while and you're feeling really helpless. And so the clarity of mind might not even be there to try to understand these concepts. Right. But if it is, because there's plenty of people that go to Joe Dispenza's retreat in late stages of disease that come out feeling better, if not healed.
So it's possible.
Right? So it's totally possible. It's just how are you going, how much are you going to align with it? How much are you going to believe it? Right. So yeah, I'd really like everybody to know there's really nothing you can't heal from.
I love that line. I love that line. There's nothing you can't heal from. That there's always hope, but I do think it's your state of being and your frame of mind of
State of being.
where
Yeah.
you truly can get to. And I agree that if you've been so sick and it's been such a challenge that you're so worn down on so many levels that it's harder to feel yourself as this eternal being and the soul, but that it's
Yeah.
possible.
So that's where certain practices come in help in handy, or right. So if you bring your attention into the heart, so it's just the spiritual heart, which is the portal to that field, is just right of center. It's just to
Okay.
the right. So the physical is so heart brain coherence is not the physical heart. Okay.
Okay.
So the physical heart actually sits kind of off to the left, but the right atrium is slightly right of the center of the sternum. And that's where the sinoatrial node is. It's a
Okay.
little like node in the right atrium. And that's where we believe that, or scientists believe that there's a point of singularity. That's the portal to the field. It's a point of singularity is where all space and time coordinates become one. They meet.
Okay.
Okay. So we all have that because we're all really coming out of that one. Space and time is an illusion.
Right.
Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it, just like a dream. Where is that dream happening, right?
Yeah.
It's an illusion, right? So this is all an illusion. We're all connected at that point. And then, so when you bring your attention there and go deep within it, you can't find a bottom. You will not be able to find a bottom. And if you can just imagine there's a dazzling white light deep within there, and just put your attention there and just trust your imagination. And then as you do that, then allow it to radiate out of you and just keep letting it shine. And what you'll start to notice is the brain will start to relax and the brain comes into coherence with the heart. But again, it's not the physical heart. It's just the center. The heart of something is the center of something. So it's just bringing your attention to that, the heart of you, the center of your soul. And then you'll see the brain will relax and just keep letting that light shine. And then you can do that in every single part of your body. That divine plane is everywhere.
Right.
So just when we put our attention on it, we activate it.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, most people think I'm looking at the light, but what you want to do eventually, if not in the beginning, is just be the light.
So would you say that, say someone has a certain condition, they have liver cancer, for example, that would be something to do with like let the light be in the areas where you have disease to really amplify
Well, I would do the whole body,
right?
but yes, if you do have liver disease, I would focus some time there, but I'd also focus on the entire body because um, so the muscles in the body are supplying the charge. They're helping to supply the energy to these different organ systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good to be energizing or contracting the muscles throughout the entire body because that's what's feeding the meridians that are delivering the charge to organs, right? So, and it's really lack of that charge, or lack of that light within everything that's causing disease. That's the life force energy. That dazzling white light is life force energy. And so when you allow that to shine through you, and simply it's just being confident in your ability to activate it. So just know that when you bring your attention into that part, every single subatomic unit is made out of that. And every proton is made out of that, right? So just bring your attention into yourself and just imagine you're sparking that white light and let it shine out of you. So now you're bringing everything back into coherence.
Would you say also that it's truly believing that this is happening, not just because you could say, oh, I'm just imagining this thing happening, but really being with the fact that this is actually happening. You're not just imagining this happening.
Yeah, so there's definitely plenty of research showing that when we go into states like this, like heart brain coherence is coming out with a lot of, has come out with a lot of research, as well as transcendental meditation has also come out with a lot of research showing how the physiology changes. And again, back to what I said earlier, when you are angry or you're stressed, you start secreting cortisol, right? So you are affecting your physiology in every single moment, right? So the more coherent you become, the more coherent the physiology and the less disease you will have. Because disease is only because you're out of balance, because you're not coherent, right? So just imagining being that dazzling white light, that's pure coherence. Right? Now, so what I would say is, just take time to practice every single day, right? So in the morning is the best time, because when we wake up in the morning, we start our day, we're going to start with, if we don't take time to decide what I want to align with, we're going to go back into our programming, right? But if we wake up and we connect into the heart and we remind ourselves, this is all just a dream. And the true me, the true reality is here. And if I'm centered here and I'm expressing this light, I'm consciously connecting to source, and I'm going to be reminding myself all day long, as much as I can, that I'm in a dream. And what I really need to focus on is how I feel, because how I feel is going to determine what shows up. Right? So that getting out of bed and reconnecting, consciously reconnecting to your source. And then setting the intention that I'm going to align to this every day, or throughout the day, is going to help you channel that information more into your life. Right? So like if we were in a dream and we woke up in the dream, we'd be like, what am I going to create? Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing here. That's what we call it. Like when we wake up in a dream, we know we're still dreaming. It's called lucid dreaming. We want to become lucid. We want to lucid dream here. And then that's what we actually call, that's enlightenment. Lucid dreaming here is enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply a complete understanding of how this reality works, right? So if you think of the double torus that's going on around us, right? So what's determining how well that torus, that flow of energy and information works, is my beliefs, who I believe I am. If I'm not paying attention to it, it's going to flow based on my conditioning. If I pay attention to it and I allow it, because that's the trick, is allowing. Because that flow, if you've seen the Sims pictures of it, right? So that flow will happen automatically if we just relax. It's our minds that cause that flow to stop.
So for our listeners, to try to make sure that you're like, am I seeing this correctly in my mind? The way I'm seeing it is sort of that donut shape, the torus field that's kind of around us.
Yeah, can I show you?
Yeah, if you can show us, that'd be great. Just for the people so they're in their own minds, they're wondering what it looks like.
So this is a really good image to have in your mind so that you know the dynamics.
Okay. So this image is, a lot of people are listening and they're not watching, but I'll put this on Spotify where you can watch this, and on YouTube.
Okay, so see that dynamic?
Yes.
Okay, so let me back that up. Okay, so that's going on in every subatomic unit in your body, every proton, every atom, every molecule, every cell, right? And so in our body, our human body has this double torus field around it too.
Okay.
So this is happening on all scales of the universe.
Okay. So for those of you listening, this also comes from work of the unified field theory from Nassim Haramein.
Yeah. So this YouTube video is called Unified Field Theory Solved ? Nassim Haramein and Foster Gamble. It's on YouTube. So this is I always have people watch this video because this will show you how everything is connected. Sorry, they only show that little piece.
Okay.
So
I haven't seen this video, so I'm excited to watch it.
Okay, so if you can imagine that the physical body is in the center here, right? So we have one around our entire body.
Right.
Okay, so the more you relax into your heart and literally relax, the more that will just shine through and spin. So as you do certain practices and bring your attention inward, you can start to feel this dynamic happening in yourself.
Yeah.
So we're allowing the conscious mind to be aware of what's already there. We're just not aware of it. So we're expanding our level of awareness of who we are and what reality is.
That's such a beautiful visual.
Isn't it?
Realizing, how beautiful we are.
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up on these small things about ourselves that we want to improve or wish were different. But really, every single one of us is so magnificent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all part of see that the white light in the center.
Yeah.
That's who we truly are. Right. So do you think this part of us has problems? No. Is this part of us worried about what someone said to it? No, it's just love.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
That's beautiful.
There's no drama here.
There's no drama.
No drama.
No anger.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, I firmly believe that we came to just, to not know who we are so we can go through the journey of realizing who we are. Because that journey, I mean, for me, when I felt myself as that light, it was the most like extraordinary experience. And my human mind could have never even thought that was possible. So that was beautiful. And so, and what I'm experiencing now is what's happened is I realize that in order to stay in that state or to even remember that state, I have to understand reality differently. So it's about really understanding the truth of what reality is, And so there's a number, it's re-exposing my mind to this information all the time. And that's all I've ever done really since I first discovered that idea about there's only one self here and we're all part of it. I was like, how does that work? That's so weird. And then I started studying Vedic science, and then I got into Kundalini yoga, and I mean, I think Kundalini yoga is a really good practice for the physical body.
Sure.
It helps you awaken to your subtle body. But the knowledge, each teacher isn't going to have this, it's going to have different levels of understanding of reality. So I would say I don't expect you to go to a Kundalini yoga class and get this type of information, but it's a great practice. It's really good to keep the energy channels in the body open, to remove the stagnation. It's really good practice. You get breath work, the physical practices. I think, the yogis were the original biohackers.
Yeah.
Right. They were doing cold therapy, their vegetarian diet mostly, not always, but mostly vegetarian diet. These, the Kundalini practices, they were doing meditation, mantra, chanting, all of that is vibrational work, right? Sound therapy. And the gong, breath work, also the asanas or the exercises are like HIIT training, high intensity interval training. You do like 1 to 3 minutes really intensely, and then you rest.
I hadn't put that together, but that's
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. So let me ask you, as we're sort of winding down here, you do so much in the realm, and you have obviously such incredible information for the average person. We've talked about coming into the heart center and waking up and spending time each day, coming into yourself and this magnificence that you are, and allowing yourself to soften into this field around us. Are there certain dietary things or supplements or exercises besides Kundalini yoga that you yourself do and recommend to your patients?
Yeah. So I think the best exercise is the one you're going to do.
Yeah.
But I do, like I said earlier, there is a flow of energy within the body. And so if you just go to the gym, you might be ignoring different parts of your body.
Okay.
Right. So that's why I really think like Kundalini is a great tool. But I don't always do Kundalini. So right now I'm going to the gym, right? And I do some yoga at home.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever exercise you want to do, and you want to make sure to try to hit every single part of the body, right? Because there's flow, right? So like, if you have if your wrists hurt, then your toxins are getting stuck in there.
Yeah.
You want to eat a really clean diet because your ability to connect with the field is going to depend on your nervous system and the health of your cells. So if you've got a lot of toxins in there, it's going to inhibit that a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Nothing is more powerful than the mind, though.
Yeah.
So even if you had a body full of toxins, if you had a real strong understanding of what reality is, it wouldn't matter. But in the beginning, when you don't have a really strong reality or understanding of what reality is, then these practices will be very beneficial. So less caffeine, not too much caffeine, not too much sugar, like really no sugar, no sugar, no caffeine or limited amounts. That's going to help your mind be less agitated, right, and help you calm down more so that you can make the connection. So you can come into resonance with the field. So, all the, a vegetarian diet can be helpful, but not necessary.
Okay.
Okay. So I think just, a balanced, healthy diet, everything in moderation, nothing extreme.
Yeah.
And then certain supplements can be helpful. It's always very highly personalized, but I think in this day and age, a really good multivitamin. So what do I mean by really good multivitamin? I mean something that has been tested for purity and efficacy. So Full Script is a dispensary that I use. I use Designs for Health products a lot, but Full Script has a number of different brands out there that are all high purity and high efficacy. Some of these you can find in Whole Foods, some you can't. But a good B vitamin, a good multivitamin, a good fish oil. A lot of people are deficient in magnesium and the minerals. A lot of people are deficient in minerals because of our farming practices. So our soil is not what it used to be. Right. And also staying away from genetically modified food, eating really a whole food based diet that's organic. And if you're eating animal protein, then make sure it's close to natural as possible, grass fed, organic.
Pat, this has been such an truly enlightening conversation. I could sit and talk to you for hours, quite honestly. I'd love to have you back and maybe look at it. There's other questions, but this could be an hours and hours podcast. You have so much information. What are the best ways? Do you do telehealth? Do you how can people work with you?
Yeah. Okay. So I did talk about the functional medicine piece. So I do work with people on functional medicine. So if you're trying to resolve a health issue or if you just want to optimize. But I also do once a week, I lead a class that's primarily focused on just what we've been talking about today. Right. And I actually do have people or a new session starting this Sunday. It's 13 weeks, and we're going to go over the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. Have you read these?
No, but I will tell you something. That book, I have it. I have not read it, and I should. I had a main spiritual teacher, and she recently crossed over. Her name was Jo Dunning, and I learned from her a technique called quantum energetic disciplines, and I still use that work to this day. It was incredibly powerful work. And I remember her saying, she said, look, I get my information from source. I don't read a lot, but I did read the life and teachings of the Master of the Far East. So I know that for her, that was such a important book. I can't believe that I haven't read it yet. I'm actually really embarrassed.
Well, you can join us if you want. I start Sunday and we meet for about 2.5 hours every Sunday. So this session, this next 13 weeks, we're going over these, and then I'm going to share them in light of the unified physics, right? So in light of what we talked about today with the double torus and the light, right?
Okay.
So because what I found is when I read these years ago, I was like, I loved it. And it's very similar to Vedic science, but I was like, how?
Yeah.
And now I understand how. So I'm going to teach the course in terms of, with the information I have now.
And then let me ask you this, because like for me, if I was to sign up, I have a lot of travel this summer and into the fall. Do you like you can get the recordings
Yeah, they're recorded.
later?
Yeah. And I put them
Okay.
up on a private playlist on YouTube. So you always have access to them. But yeah, so that's, and I've been doing that since last, not with the life and teachings necessarily, but I've been doing groups like this since last maybe October or August. I don't remember, last fall sometime I started these, and they're not that big, which is what I like too, because I think it's really important for people to talk,
Yeah.
to get their questions answered and be able to share their experience. And everybody learns so much from other people's experiences. So the groups are maybe 15, maybe this one will be 20 people. It's not that big. And so we'll read a little bit, and then I'll share give the science behind it in layman's terms.
Right.
And then we go over concepts. So I also do that. So that you can always find whatever I'm doing on my website. It's www.drkatlewis.com. I'm also on TikTok. That's where I'm most active.
Okay.
I really like the TikTok community. It's fun. And I'm
So I
also
found
on
you.
I'm also on the other platforms, but I'm not super active on those, but yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm going to put in the show notes, I'll put it's Dr. Kat Lewis for those who are listening though, and that's
KAT.
Katlewis. So
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Kat with a K, Lewis, to go. If you don't go look at the show notes, that's how you can find her. Clearly, she is an unbelievable wealth of information and really breaks down these very complicated concepts in such easy to understand ways. So I have learned so much from you today and I'm inspired. So thank you
Good.
for coming on and sharing
Yeah.
your work and your story.
Yeah. Thank you. I'd
All
love to
right.
hear your story sometime too. So we should connect again.
Let's do this again.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Okay.
Thanks everybody. Thank you for being with us.
That's all.